More with Lars right now on FM News 101.
Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show. Glad to be with you and glad to take your phone calls and emails, and we'll do that in a short while at 866-HEY-LARS. That's 866-439-5277. Emails go to talk@larslarsson.com. Now, if you listen to the show regularly, you know that I don't have an objection to a social safety net for people who find themselves unable to fend for themselves. But I usually look at that, unless somebody has a permanent problem, like a permanent disability, as something to tide you over and get you back to where you can stand on your own 2 feet. So I see this story the other day about a woman who had received social welfare benefits for about 17 years. She has 6 kids, and she was a single mom. Well, at least they thought she was a single mom, until she filed for bankruptcy. Said even with the help she got from the social welfare programs, she couldn't make it. So she filed for bankruptcy, and at that point, the state of Oregon, which is not exactly collectively the sharpest tool in the shed, said, hey, you're still married. Why, you don't qualify for these benefits at all. So you're going to need to pay some of them back. And I think actually the state was pretty forgiving. Out of 17 years of benefits, the state wanted 3 years back. But she was in the middle of bankruptcy. And her response was, I think I can characterize this. I've never talked to the woman, but I'm going to talk to her lawyer here in a moment. Her response was, I'm having a tough time as it is. How am I supposed to pay back, what is it, $75,000, Michael Fuller?
That's what they're asking for.
75 grand. So that means that over the 17 years, she's received about, what, 6 times that amount?
They're saying that from 2009 to 2013, she had received benefits wrongfully, and then they add 9% interest pre and post judgment. And that debt never goes away, so that would follow you for the rest of your life.
All right. Now, you characterize yourself as the underdog lawyer. In fact, you've even trademarked the term.
I did, yeah.
Now, why is that?
A buddy of mine got a takedown letter from a firm called Morgan & Morgan because he put We the People on his website, and I just thought, you know what, if I'm going to run with this underdog lawyer gimmick, I might as well own it too.
And you are a lawyer for the underdog?
Self-proclaimed, yeah, but most of my clients, you know, I represent people against large corporations, the government. I help inmates. I help welfare moms. So, yeah, most of my clients have their backs against the wall.
So tell me about this young lady.
So this young lady, she has an 8th grade education. She's got severe mental impairments. She has 6 children. And the issue is really, did she lie on her application for benefits? And instead of putting resources into screening those benefits at the outset, the state instead just seemed to, you know, grant as much as possible. And then now that she's in bankruptcy, the state's attorney at the DOJ, Marcus Hull, has decided to prosecute her for fraud.
Is that unusual?
It's not unusual that she's a single mother of color being prosecuted for fraud in bankruptcy, and the reason is most people in that position can't afford lawyers.
Well, but is it unusual for the state to go after monies if monies have been paid to people, you know, outside the rules?
If they've been paid outside the rules, it would be unusual. Usually they have to allege some sort of deception on the beneficiary's part in the application process. But that isn't what it seems. Like in this case, she had a person living with her who was her husband. They had separate lives. He had a separate entrance. He, you know, had his own affairs, and she didn't. And they knew about him. And she didn't include him on her definition of household. She just included her and her kids.
Did she indicate she was unmarried?
No.
Okay.
No, they knew at all times. In fact, they were collecting child support on his behalf. They've been involved in the DOJ was well aware of them and their situation. And it was only after she filed bankruptcy that they came in and filed this lawsuit against her when she really couldn't defend herself.
So why does it not make sense for the people of Oregon, you know, who pay for this either through federal monies that we've paid to the federal government in taxes, and then they come back as various kinds of social welfare support, whether it's TANF, whether it's SNAP, all these other programs. It either comes from our state taxes or our federal taxes. This is our money. If it's paid incorrectly to somebody, why shouldn't the state try to get it back? And isn't everyone who receives it going to have a sad story about why they shouldn't have to pay it back?
Not always. In this case, the state is wasting money. If they had put these resources into limiting the benefits given in the first place, we wouldn't be here. Now they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to prosecute this woman who makes less than $600 a month. She's never going to repay anything. She's disabled. She's just never going to repay this debt. And so I would like to see the state either focus on other people out there committing fraud who actually could repay their debts, or better yet, put the benefits in the front where she's making her application and actually make sure she's getting what she should be getting.
And do they do much today in the way of vetting people before they're granted these kinds of benefits, or does the state, for the most part, just take somebody's word for it that their circumstances are as stated on the form?
not only do they take your word for it, they don't really even help you through the process. I have another client in a very similar situation where it was unclear whether she was supposed to report this, and these are all working people, doing their best to still work. And she had, I guess, worked a little too much, and she didn't include income from a second job doing healthcare, and they're going after her for fraud. And her defense is, you never told me. You had me fill out this application, which I needed for my children, and I did, and I got the benefits, and now I'm back full-time employed. And now you're coming after me, essentially, there's no way to get away from these judgments to the state. I mean, it's a death sentence. $75,000 with interest that never goes away.
But isn't that the kind of thing? I mean, I'm not a lawyer, never have been, never aspired to be, but early on in my career, I heard the term judgment proof. And it sounds legal, but it's not. It just means you can get a judgment of $1 million against somebody who doesn't have 2 cents to his name, and it doesn't mean much because you can't ever collect it. So what is it you think the state is really attempting to do in a case like this?
Well, and that's a term we use in the industry all the time, and it's a term that would apply to Ms. Arango in this case. She's never going to pay a dime. I think the DOJ in this case, the prosecuting attorney, is just trying to rack up wins against defenseless debtors, we call them, in bankruptcy. When you look up his track record, he wins by default almost every time. The only 2 times he's ever actually been taken to task was by a pro bono lawyer, me, going there at no cost to actually defend these people. And one case is pending trial. The other one, we filed a motion to dismiss it. So I think it's an attorney and a system where they're just there billing hours. I mean, it's very expensive. I can't tell you how expensive it is. You're talking, we've had to take time out of multiple people working for the state's day to come to settlement conferences, to come to depositions, to come to trials. This attorney, who knows what he's billing the state for all this time, and it's all for nothing. It's a waste.
And all he's doing is piling up scalps. He's just got a pile of judgments against a whole bunch of people that, for the most part, don't have any money.
He's welcome to come on here and defend himself, but I looked up his record before I started taking these cases, and that's what I saw, and that's what I continue to see.
And do they ever? I mean, I understand that at some level they may say, but someday Ms. Arango may go out and spend $1 and win the lottery, and when she has that money, then we can get her. But that doesn't seem to happen very often. So what are they thinking they'll do with all these judgments eventually? Do you know?
I don't know. And some people said, well, maybe they need to set an example. But the fact is, they aren't publicizing these cases. They're doing this work behind closed doors. Nobody knows about it, let alone responds to it. So you'd have to ask Mr. Hull what he's doing with his time and why that's valuable to the state.
Well, do you think that Ellen Rosenblum, the likes of Ellen Rosenblum or Kate Brown, are going to come out and hold news conferences and publicize, we're going after poor people? That wouldn't exactly be the most popular political message in Oregon.
I think this case is horribly unpopular, and I think it should be. I grew up, with a single mom in a trailer park in Hillsborough, and we needed public assistance benefits from time to time. So I understand how important it is not to waste and squander those resources. But that's exactly what they're doing now on the back end. They should have taken Mr. Hull and have him oversee the payment department, not the overpayment department. That would be a good use of taxpayer resources.
But you grew up in the trailer park, but you did have one advantage. You said you listened to my radio show.
Absolutely, Lars. That's why it's such an honor to be here. I listened to your show every single day growing up in the trailer park, and it helped me.
Did that help you get out of the trailer park?
Absolutely, it did. No, I've become more liberal over the years, and I'm a trial lawyer now, so, that's
Although if you've listened to the show a lot, you understand that I don't necessarily advocate for the increase in the overall world population of trial lawyers.
Hey, few do, and I didn't. I love the work I'm doing. I'm helping people. I'm righting wrongs. A lot of it's pro bono, like this case. But no, I totally get the perspective. But no, actually, your show, it helped keep me focused, and it helped me. I was the first in my family to go to college, first to become a professional. And so, yeah, it's really an honor to be here.
See, I can make the case that this is a very conservative thing you're doing. Usually trial lawyers don't do conservative things. They give money to Hillary and they give money to Kate Brown and Jay Inslee and people like that. But in this case, saying to the state, stop doing these things that cost a lot of money, have almost no potential to produce a positive outcome financially for the state, and aren't going to be publicized, which means that unlike the IRS, which has a very good publicity arm that makes sure everybody knows, be fearful of us. That actually has the benefit, perhaps, of getting people to pay their taxes, except for maybe Mr. Manafort. I'm not sure. I kind of think he did cheat on his taxes, but I think the reason he's in trouble, like the California filmmaker was in trouble after the Benghazi attack, is because of who he is and who he worked for 3.5 months.
Yeah, I'm going to wait for the jury to come back on that. I'm generally opposed to government prosecutions.
Really? All of them?
No, I'm generally opposed to them. Until there's been some, jury decision, I give people the benefit of the doubt. And I don't appreciate the fact that Mr. Manafort was, put in a cage for 23 hours. I currently represent someone pro bono that was court appointed, who's an inmate here in Oregon, and I'm representing him on the same thing. That is not a form of punishment, and he's been convicted of nothing yet. Now, when he's convicted, he should get a fair sentence.
And I'm with you on Manafort. When they put him in those kinds of conditions, they were effectively saying we're going to get our pound of flesh up front just in case we don't get it on the backside.
Agreed. And, you know, I'll wait for the facts to come out and the jury to make their decision. I don't know anything actually personally about the case to comment, other than I don't like the fact that he was put in a cage like that. I think that's inhumane. I think it's unconstitutional.
You mind sticking around for another segment?
No, of course not.
Very good. Michael Fuller, the underdog lawyer, is with me in the studio. And as I said, I think what he's doing right now is a very conservative thing, or a thing that conservatives could like, to say don't spend money on things that aren't going to produce a positive outcome for the taxpayers or anyone else. 866-439-5277. Emails go to talk@larslarson.com.